Hello. How are you doing this week? I'm just imagining what you need from me. Maybe you need some encouragement, or maybe things are going well. Maybe your loved one is practicing sobriety, and I want to celebrate that. There are a lot of you out there who have written me and told me that your loved one has gotten sober, and I think that is the greatest achievement of all time. I think someone that manages and chooses to get sober for an extended period deserves so much respect. I just always tear up when I hear that about when I meet people that are doing that. I have never struggled with addiction. And for me, I love sugar, and I often think if someone told me I could never have another drop of sugar for the rest of my life, I don't even know. And that's pales in comparison to probably the desires and urges that someone has with addiction and the social stigma that goes around that and the pressure in our society to drink or use drugs. My kids are, we have a few kids in college and one in law school, and they don't drink or use drugs. And they constantly are telling me, in order to have friends in a social life, they find themselves with people who drink as, a social behavior. And they're getting more and more comfortable with the idea of being vocal about that and choosing to abstain. But I've seen them, say no thank you to alcohol that's being offered to them and get pressured in front of me. And oftentimes the people that are pressuring them are the people who know our story and who know their story of their biological father and that there's genetics at play. And they're still offering them a beer or a drink or telling me that it's unreasonable for me to encourage my children to not drink. It gets me worked up. It's very ridiculous. And I'm so incredibly proud that my children are continuing in their 20s to live that lifestyle. Makes me very, very grateful. So where was I even going with that? I don't even know why I was I'm so sorry. That was just a little personal tangent of mine, and I apologize, but back to you. So we're going to talk today about advice. All right. If you go to the bookstore, and a lot of us live in towns where they don't even exist anymore, which is so incredibly sad because a good bookstore is like one of my favorite places on earth to be. And you walk into a marital section or advice section, there's not a lot of great New York Times bestsellers or mega hit relationship advice books that pertain to us. We are in a different situation. When you love someone struggling with addiction, a lot of that advice actually can be really detrimental. And some authors are really understanding this and putting a disclaimer at the front of their book saying if you're in an abusive marriage or if you're in a non-typical relationship with a partner, this advice probably doesn't pertain to you. And I am so grateful for authors who choose to do that. But you and I both know that addiction leaves a path of destruction. And we are usually the ones left picking up the pieces. Our finances, our homes, our future dreams, they can all be demolished by one tiny pill or one little 6-ounce bottle or one tiny little baggie of powder, or even one website address if pornography is what your loved one is struggling with. The path always starts with one. And you and I live in constant fear of the first because we know afterwards there will be many to follow. If you don't love someone struggling with addiction, what I just described to you, it's almost too difficult to understand. The reason we are resistant to revealing what is truly going on in our relationships is because we're afraid of other people's reactions. And let's be honest, not many people know what to do with our feelings of deep loneliness and constant anxiety. And really well-intentioned people can give some really hurtful advice. So one Christmas, many, many, many years ago, in an unusually calm and vulnerable moment, and I say that because I had 3 young children and was married to a good man who struggled with all types of addictions, I found the courage to tell a close family member that my husband was addicted to drugs and alcohol. I always kept it a secret from my friends and family because I wanted to protect him. And I was sitting on the living room floor with this person, and my newborn baby was asleep, bundled up in his cozy little blanket on the bouncy chair next to us. And I remember stroking my son's face while waiting for my family member to respond. It felt like millions of moments passed. And then they said, "Well, I think you should love him more. Michelle, why don't you love him until it hurts?" Love him until it hurts. There are so many things wrong with this advice that I'm not even sure where to begin. But first, before I go into this, I do want to recognize that this person had the right motivation. They have a very caring heart. They do. And later, when I decided to leave, they came to my rescue many times when I was divorcing my husband. But asking for marriage advice from someone who has never loved someone struggling with addiction before, that was my mistake. Expecting someone to understand our painful world of addiction, it's unfair unless they've lived with it. We live in unique circumstances, and truly, it's difficult to relate to on any level unless you yourself have loved someone suffering from addiction. So normal relationship advice does not usually apply to us. And in fact, it can hurt us. Because yes, in a healthy relationship, you are expected to compromise. But when addiction is involved, boundaries are your best friend. In a healthy relationship, looking for ways to express love to your partner is considered thoughtful. But in a relationship when addiction is involved, it could run the risk of being codependent. Do you see where I'm going with this? Also, back to the love them until it hurts advice. One could argue that love and pain go hand in hand. Okay, sure. Yeah, we've all watched the romantic comedies and we've all listened to Taylor Swift's amazing songs, right? Pain and love are the constant kind of denominators. I love my children, and sometimes loving them can be painful, especially when they don't clean up their messes, they get feisty, or they text me from college with a crisis, and I'm putting the crisis in quotes, people, at 11 p.m. when I am fast asleep. But love and pain, when you love someone suffering from addiction, that's a whole nother deal. A lot of us experience way more pain than most of our friends who are in relationships. Some of us have experienced physical pain inflicted on us by our partners, and some of us feel the pain of embarrassment when our loved one behaves or misbehaves in front of others. We can experience the pain of broken promises to get sober and broken hearts when we discover that they have been unfaithful. The list of our pain from love is long, and loving until it hurts is not ever advice that applies to us. So, what relationship advice have you received that has been unhelpful or even hurtful? And I would love to actually hear what relationship you have been advised that has helped you. If you need a community, a pep talk, some advice, you can head over to the blog. It's completely free. I write at Love Over Addiction. And I'm also on social media, and you can find a bunch of us hanging out there because you don't need to do this alone. I know it's tough, but I also want to encourage you that you can handle this. You can. I know it feels like you're broken and you're exhausted, but you've got this. You've got the wisdom. You've got the courage. You've got the tenacity and the grit to make it through this. And there are so many lessons you are learning that when you come out of this and you come out of this relationship, whether you decide to stay with them or not, you are going to be an incredibly stronger, even more wise person than when you started. You're learning helpful lessons. You're growing, even through the discomfort. And I am so proud of you. I will talk to you soon.